Hey YouTube, Amdex Music here, and welcome to our new series, Mastering Jazz Standards. In this series, we will look at iconic recordings from the perspective of the performer and look at what they did, how they did it, and why they did it. So by the end of this video, not only will you have the exact progression featured in the recording, but you will also have a wide range of tools and skills that you can apply to any song, including your own. Our first song is going to be Misty, as played by Earl Garner on the 1955 album Earl Garner Plays Misty. You'll find all related information to the song in the description down below. So this is the version of Misty that we're going to use. I've already completely analyzed it and synced it using Mapping Tonal Harmony Pro, which is the tool you'll see us using moving forward to analyze all of the harmonic embellishments that Earl Garner used in this piece. The real book version is in the key of E flat, but Earl played it in the key of A flat, and that's your first harmonic development. Transpose to any key that you want. Transposing is a simple transformation, but it's essential when creating your own version of a standard. All right, so let's change the key that we have here in the real book version in E flat into A flat. Right here, I'm going to click there, and boom. So the chord names have completely changed, but it's worth noting that their purpose or their functions have not. So you can see this concept illustrated quite clearly if I click on the function button down here, and then I change from A flat back to E flat, and the map never changes. The chords on the right side where the chart is will, but the functions do not. So now we have a great place from which, now that we're in A flat, we have a great place from which to compare and contrast the real book version in our key with what we're about to do as we evolve this into the recording. Alright, so right away in measure 1, we see an interpolated C minor. A flat is our 1, and C minor is the 3 chord. And this is something you can always do because the 1 chord and the 3 chord not only straddle the same or share the same region in our map. If you look at the upper part of a 1 major 7 chord, you'll see the notes of the 3 chord. So it's sort of like self-contained within it, right? So let's plug that chord in right here. I'm going to go to beat 3, and then boom, we have our C minor 7 interpolation of the 3 chord. The second technique is going to occur in measure 2 on the 3rd beat. And what we're going to do here is something called borrowing or modal interchange. So the function of the chord is going to stay the same. We're just going to borrow from the parallel minor to change the harmony a little bit and the chord scale, which will inform the melody and the improvisation also. So instead of A flat 7, what we're going to use is A flat 7 flat 9. And you'll notice the chord scale changed from mixo to mixo flat 9 flat 13. But Garner doesn't stop there, because the default scale for my 5 of 4 in minor is Mixolydian flat 9 flat 13. And that flat 13 is not compatible with our melody. Our melody is F, and the chord scale pairing implies F flat. So we're going to change that to just a regular flat 9. Let me go back real quick, sorry. Right click, Mixolydian, flat 9, boom. Now the chord scale pairing jibes with the melody, perfect. So anytime you have a dominant chord in your chart with a mixo chord scale, you can always replace it with a mixo flat 9 or a mixo flat 9 flat 13. But that's a one-way street. You can never go the other way. And that means to say, if you have a mixo flat 9 flat 13 in your chart already, don't turn it into a mixo with a dominant chord. So on to measure 3, where we're going to see our next technique on the third beat. We start off on the measure with a D flat major 7 chord, and all we're going to do on the third beat is interpolate next to it its 2 chord. So now I have the 2 chord present, whereas before I just had the 4 chord for the whole measure. So this is kind of similar to the first technique we talked about. They occupy the same region of the map, the subdominant region, and if you look at the upper 3 notes of a B flat minor 7 chord, you'll see the D flat chord. And that means to say, if you look at the upper notes of any 2 chord, you're going to see the 4 chord that it's related to. So the next reharmonization is found at the first ending. And so before we talk about that, let's see what's going on in the first ending to begin with. And all we have is a turnaround. So we're basically, or what Garner was probably doing here is basically considering the target, which is the A flat chord back at the beginning of the chart. So what he did was, okay, what's its 5 chord? E flat 7. And what's the 2 of that 5? B flat minor 7. So we basically just have a 2, 5, 1 turnaround. And then before that, in the first measure of the first ending, it's just the 2, 5 of the 2 of 5 of our target. So it's like a 2, 5 of the 2, 5 to the target. So now what we're going to do is turn that turnaround into what's called an extended dominant sequence. All right, so we're going to leave this E flat alone, and as with any extended dominant sequence, work our way backwards from there. Remembering the whole time that we're targeting this E flat, which is also targeting the A flat at the beginning of the song. So what we're going to do is find the 5 of E flat and plug that in before it, which is B flat 7. So there we go. We've changed that 2, 5, that B flat minor 7 to a B flat 7. And then we're going to find the 5 of B flat, which just so happens to be the chord that's already there, the F7 flat 9, so we don't have to do anything with that. We can leave that alone. And now all I need is to find the 5 of F7. And that is over here, C7, flat 9. So now I have this really cool extended dominant sequence. C, F, B flat, E flat, A flat. And we didn't have to change the roots of any of the chords. So it's a really cool reharm in that we've sort of re-engineered the sound a little bit, but also stayed true to what Erroll Garner had originally. Our next technique is found in the second ending, and this is something we're just going to call a cadential reharm. So what we have here in the initial or the original chart is just A flat, G flat, and A flat. So he's going 1, flat 7, 7, back to 1 again. This probably was all a 1 chord at one point. So what Garner did here was kind of to break up the monotony of this all just being a static 1 chord, is introduce some tension by way of this flat 7, 7. I only bring that up because that's exactly what we're going to do with our reharmonization. And that something happens to be this D flat. We're going to make it a D flat 6 right over here, the 4 chord. All right, so now we have everything, let me save that, we have everything we need for our cadential reharm that honors the melody note, which is the 1, and also facilitates or accommodates the real reason Garner probably did this, which is that cool little 4-note quasi-pentatonic riff that you hear occurring here. If he wasn't doing that riff, there were a couple of other ways he could have achieved this breaking up of the monotony of the static 1 chord. He could have gone, for example, 1 minor 4, 1. All right, or he could have gone with more modal interchange and used the minor chord, the minor 1 chord, or he could have done this. All right, there are all these different ways you can break up just a static 1 chord. So just to recap, he replaced the flat 7 to 1 with a 4 to 1.